I'd opened the garage door at 7:03 a.m., birthday tradition. Just me and the Triumph Bonneville my father left me, the only thing I've ever restored with my own hands. The space was empty. No motorcycle. No helmet. Not even a dust outline where the tires sat for 3 years. I stood there, blinking. This was the one constant, untouched even during our kitchen remodel or her spring reset rituals. Behind me, Emily's voice rang out from the kitchen. Surprise! I turned. She held a spatula in one hand, smiling too brightly. I donated it, she said. The bike. It felt like time to let go. Cole helped arrange everything. I smiled, but inside, something shifted, not panic. Calculation. I catalogued the details before responding. She said, donated. Not sold, she used. Felt like time, instead of we talked about. And Cole, that name hadn't surfaced in years. Thank you, I said quietly. She walked over and kissed my cheek. It was cluttering the space. Figured it was time for a clean slate. I watched her move back to the stove, like she hadn't just erased something sacred. Cole was the name that stuck. Not because I suspected him, but because she'd once sworn him off. Said he had a way of always pushing boundaries. Back then I believed her. Trusted her to recognize the difference between temptation and loyalty. Now, he was helping her erase the last physical thing I shared with my father. She made pancakes, talking about weekend plans. I nodded, replied, even laughed once. But beneath the surface, something clicked out of place. The kind of sound you only notice after it echoes. That bike wasn't just sentimental. It had real value, the kind collectors circle for. She knew that. She'd watched me turn wrenches in that garage for a year after Dad passed. She knew what it meant. And she gave it away. Without a word. After breakfast, I stepped outside and made a show of checking my phone. Instead, I opened the note app one rarely use. One word Cole. Then another, bike gone, no warning. I locked the screen. Inside, she was clearing plates, humming. I watched her move. Everything looked the same. That was the problem. Nothing had changed on the surface, which meant the change had happened long before. Later that afternoon, I walked past the garage again. This time, I opened the drawers where I kept spare parts. The carburetor I'd rebuilt was missing too. So were the maintenance logs, the tool set I only used for vintage repairs, even the oil-stained rag I kept from my father's last tune-up. This wasn't a donation. It was a wipe. That evening, she handed me a gift, a framed photo of us from a vacation we took during our second year together. I remembered that trip. It was the last time we'd slept in the same bed without distance. This felt right, she said. Something fresh. Not just stuff. I smiled, because smiling was safer than asking. She kissed my forehead, whispered something sweet, and went to the bedroom early to read. I stayed behind, staring at the frame. Behind the glass, we were barefoot, sunburned, smiling. But the frame was new. The photo was old. And everything between the two had gone silent. That night, lying next to her, I listened to her breathing and stared at the ceiling. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just replayed her tone when she said donated, and the way her eyes flicked sideways when she mentioned Cole. There's a look people get when they're rehearsing something they've already done. She gave me a clean garage, and a dirty feeling. It was almost midnight when I found it, a torn piece of handwritten paper stuffed into a brown grocery bag at the bottom of the recycling bin. I hadn't been digging. I was taking out the trash, like I always did on Thursdays. Routine. Boring. Safe. Until I noticed the bag was heavier than it should have been. Paper shouldn't carry weight like that. I opened it because something felt off. Like the morning after a staged surprise, everything smiles, but the air's been rearranged. There, under a carton of oat milk and a folded pizza box, was the corner of a page. Torn, angled. No envelope. I pulled it out gently, already knowing. The handwriting was hers. Emily's cursive, tight, neat, controlled. The kind of penmanship you only get from someone who likes being understood but never questioned. It read, "Thanks again for helping. It's time to start clearing the anchors before I move." That was it. No date. The bottom of the page was ripped clean off, as if someone had second thoughts mid-tear. I stood there in the kitchen with the note in my hand and the fridge humming behind me, staring at those words. They were clear, sharp. No way to read them as anything else. This wasn't about clutter. It was about me. The phrase, "clearing the anchors before I move," Hit harder than the missing bike. She didn't say, "Move on," or "Leave." She said, "Make my move," like it was a game, and I was just another piece on the board. The note was short, but it said everything. I folded it carefully, slid it into the back of my wallet behind an old gas receipt, and put the trash out like nothing had happened. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay next to her again, listening to the steady rhythm of someone dreaming peacefully beside the man she was planning to remove. The next morning, she was humming in the bathroom. I watched her move through the mirror as I brushed my teeth. She asked about my schedule, said she might work late. I asked if she needed me to pick anything up. She said, "Actually, I grabbed a few things yesterday. You probably noticed I cleaned out the recycling bin." Finally, I didn't blink, didn't ask, but that told me everything. She hadn't just written that note. She tried to bury it. She thought it was gone, one less loose end. But the universe missed the spot. That day, I started watching her the way you'd study a loaded weapon you thought was decorative. From the outside, nothing had changed. Same kiss goodbye, same afternoon text with a heart at the end, same dinner, same soft conversation. But everything under it was different now. I began to take notes. Real ones. I bought a small black notebook and kept it in the glove box. Nothing digital. Nothing traceable. Just ink and dates. April 17th. Bike gone. Said Cole helped. Didn't ask first. April 18th. Found note. Clearing the anchors before I move. Signature E. April 19th. She asked about the recycling. Knew the note was gone. Possible timeline. Emotional detachment complete. Execution phase underway. She wasn't cheating with Cole. Not yet, maybe. But emotionally, strategically, she was gone. And she didn't intend to leave quietly. I didn't confront her. Not because I was afraid. Because I needed more. I needed facts, patterns, leverage. This wasn't going to be a blow-up fight in the kitchen with raised voices and half-baked apologies. She'd chosen secrecy. Strategy. So I would too. That weekend, we had brunch with her friend Melissa. Emily laughed easily, leaned on my shoulder, told a story about our trip to Charleston like nothing was wrong. But when Melissa asked about her schedule next week, Emily answered too quickly. "Cole and I are finishing something up, then I'll be all yours." Melissa raised an eyebrow. I didn't react. I just cut another bite of French toast and let the moment pass. Later that night, while Emily was in the shower, I slipped into her office. I didn't touch anything. Just looked. The top drawer of her desk, once messy, was now color-coded. The personal file tab had been moved. There was a slim black folder labeled "Next Phase." I didn't open it. Not yet. I wasn't ready to risk disturbing the scene. This was an operation, and I was officially behind enemy lines. She came out of the bathroom wrapped in that navy robe again, smelling like lavender and something else I didn't recognize. "You okay?" she asked. "Just thinking," I said. "About what?" "About what to let go of next," she smiled. But I wasn't smiling back. Not anymore. I didn't need spyware or GPS trackers. What I needed was patience, discipline, and a good memory, the things that had always gotten me further than panic ever could. Emily was too careful for slip-ups. If she was planning an exit, she wouldn't broadcast it through texts or leave a burner phone under the mattress. She'd do it with planning software, digital calendars, maybe even lawyers she'd met. Through a client. Everything above the table, just hidden in plain sight. And so, I stopped reacting. I started studying. The first thing I noticed was how she began reorganizing things that didn't need reorganizing. Paperwork that used to sit in a pile on the hall table started disappearing. Receipts, warranty docs, anything tied to the house or finances. When I asked her if she'd seen the envelope with our HVAC service contract, she said, "Oh, I sorted through the files last week, just cleaning things up." I waited until she was out on a run the next morning, then checked our home file cabinet. The folder labeled deed and title. House was gone. Not misplaced. Removed. I didn't touch anything else. Just noted the absence and closed the drawer. That same afternoon, I made an excuse to stop by her office downtown. She worked in development consulting, mostly urban design and private investments, a world I knew little about and cared even less for until now. She wasn't at her desk. "Off-site," her coworker said casually. "She and Cole are finishing something big this week, closing some deal she's been working on forever." I nodded like I already knew, asked where they'd gone, but the woman just shrugged. She didn't say. "Just that it's confidential." On the way back to my car, I called my own office and said I needed to take some personal days. Family health stuff, I offered. They didn't ask questions. That night, Emily made chicken marsala, lit candles, poured me a glass of wine before I even asked. It was the kind of meal she used to make when we were happy, or pretending to be. The timing was too perfect. Figured you deserved something nice, she said. I raised my glass. What's the occasion? Nothing. Just, you've been quiet lately. I smiled, thinking about the future. She touched her glass to mine, eyes locked. Same. After dinner, while she rinsed dishes, I stepped out to the garage. Not to look for the bike. I knew it was gone. I wanted to feel the absence again. Measure it. I opened the drawer where I kept old tax returns. One folder remained, 2018, joint filing. Everything after that was gone. She wasn't cleaning. She was curating. I began cross-checking our bank accounts. Nothing unusual on the surface. Our joint account still had the usual grocery charges, recurring payments, utilities. But her personal business account had ballooned in the past 2 months. No wild transactions, just a slow, steady climb in balance. And then I noticed something curious. A $6,800 deposit labeled Consulting Third Party. When I searched the origin ID, the transfer was tied to a holding company in Delaware. Generic, anonymous. But it stood out. Emily wasn't the kind to take odd consulting jobs without telling me. She didn't freelance. Everything about that payment said unreported income. I printed the statement and filed it under Evidence, Phase 1. Meanwhile, I started rewatching her behavior with friends. At a neighbor's barbecue, I caught a telling moment. Our friend Rob joked about how Emily was basically married to Cole now, the way they'd been joined at the hip. Everyone laughed. Emily just smiled, not awkward, not nervous. Just neutral. No denial. No clarification. I looked at her face the whole time. She looked relieved. Back home that night, I wrote one line in the notebook. She's not slipping. She's scheduling. I searched the house for more documents, always during her runs, her calls with clients, her morning yoga. I wasn't looking for one big reveal. I was counting shadows, tracing the shape of a woman building a future where I didn't exist. And then, one morning while she showered, I opened the Notes app on her iPad. It wasn't locked. There was a checklist titled Staging Exit, Confirm Legal Title Change, Inventory Major Assets, Remove Joint Obligations, Plan Alternate Mailing Address, Meet with JL, Prep Cole for June. She hadn't deleted it. She thought it was private enough to stay hidden. Or maybe she thought I'd never look. But I did. I took a photo with my phone, then erased my fingerprints from the screen and put the iPad back exactly as I found it. That night, she kissed me goodnight and asked if I wanted to take a trip sometime soon. Just us. No planning. Getaway. I looked at her face and saw the strangest thing. The look of someone negotiating her own alibi. I said yes, because I wasn't ready to confront her yet. Not until I understood exactly how far she'd already gone. The discovery wasn't dramatic. It didn't fall out of a drawer or get handed to me by mistake. I found it folded neatly in the bottom of her gym bag, buried under resistance bands and a pair of pristine running shoes she hadn't worn once. I wasn't even looking for anything that day. I was grabbing a charger from the outlet in the bedroom when her bag tipped slightly off the bench. Something inside shifted, paper against nylon, too firm to be receipts. I pulled it out slowly, careful not to crease anything. It wasn't a planner or a notebook. It was a binder. Slim, black, unlabeled. Inside, the first page read, Divorce Preparation Workbook, Confidential. I stared at the title for a few seconds before I turned the page. Not because I hesitated. Because I already knew what I was about to see. Tabs divided the sections: custody planning, asset strategy, relocation logistics, and, most telling, exit narrative. Under custody, she'd written, solo ownership of dogs, emotional grounds. Our 2 retrievers, the ones I fed every morning, walked every night. I was reduced to a line item. Under asset liquidation, she'd highlighted entries that told a timeline. Dining set, sold via FB Marketplace, $1,250. Tools, gifted to buyer. Off record. Motorcycle, handled. Jewelry, appraised. That last one sat underlined. Appraised but not sold. Not yet. Maybe saving it. Maybe gauging value. The exit narrative tab hit harder than I expected. It read like a script for when the truth came out. We'd grown apart. He was emotionally unavailable. No infidelity, just sadness. I had to choose myself. There it was. The playbook. A quiet smear wrapped in sympathy. No mess, no blame. Just her name cleared, my memory blurred. In the back was a calendar printout. Specific days circled in red. One of them was my birthday. Another was 3 weeks from now, marked. Final shift, property/identity. She wasn't leaving impulsively. She was structuring an exit the way people plan mergers, with timed releases, scripted statements, and asset maneuvering. That night, we attended a dinner at our neighbor's place. Emily wore a dress I hadn't seen before, dark green tailored. She looked like someone already stepping into her next version. Midway through, while refilling drinks, our neighbor Claudia joked. "So, Cole's your transition partner, huh? I keep hearing that term around you too." Emily laughed softly. Not a denial. Not even discomfort. "Something like that," she said. She didn't correct it. She didn't even glance at me. I stood beside the grill, bottle in hand, and smiled through it. But that moment changed something. Until then, I'd been collecting evidence, quietly, methodically, with hope flickering in the back of my mind that maybe she'd pull back from the edge. But watching her let that phrase float there, transition partner, while wearing my grandmother's bracelet and sipping wine in a stranger's house, that was the point of no return. When we got home, I didn't speak. She didn't ask why. She peeled off the green dress, folded it over a hanger, and said something about work meetings in the morning. I watched her disappear down the hallway, calm and barefoot, and it hit me how rehearsed it all was. This wasn't her first time imagining the end. It was just her first time executing it in real time. I stayed up late again, reviewing the workbook page by page. I copied the contents to my own notebook. I took photos, time-stamped everything, then returned the binder exactly where I'd found it. I wasn't ready to confront her, because I wasn't done building my own blueprint yet. I walked into the real estate attorney's office on a Wednesday afternoon. Told them I was updating property records. No urgency, just estate clarity. I kept my voice steady, my hands folded. Said I wanted to confirm the title was still properly filed under both names, just in case anything ever happened to either of us. The paralegal took my name, smiled, asked if I wanted coffee. I said no. 15 minutes later, the lawyer returned with a printed record and a brow already furrowed. "There's been a title transfer," he said carefully. "A quitclaim deed filed 5 weeks ago. Your name's no longer on the property." I stared at him, blank-faced. "Filed by who?" "Your wife, Emily Whitaker. And your signature's on it." He slid the paper across the desk. It was a photocopy of a form I'd never seen. My name, scrawled in a version of my handwriting that wasn't mine, sat beside hers in the signature field, dated and notarized. A sick silence settled between us. "It's a forgery," I said, quietly, without hesitation. He nodded once. "That's what I figured. Is it legally binding?" "Not if we can prove it wasn't you. But until then, she technically owns the property. And she's moving fast. I'd advise you act quickly." I asked for a copy of the form and every page related to the filing. He made me a packet, stapled neatly. I thanked him, shook his hand, and walked out into sunlight that felt colder than it should have. When I got back home, she was at the kitchen table, working on her laptop, earbuds in. She looked up, smiled. "Hey, everything okay?" I nodded. "Just errands. Dinner's at 7? Perfect." That night, I sat in the garage again. It felt different now, not just empty, but stripped. Like a stage after closing night. No motorcycle. No tools. No echo of past Saturdays with my father's voice drifting over the radio. Just 4 walls and a void where memory used to sit. The house was already hers on paper. And in spirit, she moved out weeks ago, not physically, but emotionally, logistically, morally. She was pulling threads in silence, dismantling the life we shared piece by piece, all while kissing my cheek and leaving the lights on for me. I opened the manila folder and stared at the fake signature again. She hadn't just taken the house, she'd rehearsed taking me out of it. When I walked back inside, she was humming to herself while pouring wine. "Want a glass?" she asked. "No, thanks." She raised her glass in a silent toast anyway. "To a productive week." I raised nothing in return. Just watched her drink it down like she'd already won. I didn't sleep that night. I went back over everything. The note in the recycling. the missing deed folder, the divorce workbook, her office off-site meetings, the joke about coal, the phantom consulting deposit. None of it was speculation now. She'd forged my name, taken legal control of the house, lied to my face for weeks while drawing up an exit strategy so cold and calculated it could have passed for a business plan. I could have yelled, could have confronted her that night and watched it all burn. But that would have given her what she expected, a reaction. Something emotional she could weaponize later in court filings and exit statements. Instead, I opened my notebook and wrote one clean sentence under the date. She's already moved out. She just hasn't packed yet. I wouldn't fight her in the dark. I'd flip the lights on when it suited me. And when I did, she'd have nowhere left to hide. It was a Tuesday. Calm. No drama. Just 2 plates of pasta, a bottle of wine, and a quiet home. She talked about a new client. I nodded. She laughed at something on her phone. I watched her. There's a particular kind of silence that only exists in moments like that, when the truth has already been carved in stone but the performance hasn't ended yet. I waited until dessert. She brought out 2 slices of cake left over from her friend's birthday, set one in front of me, kissed my cheek, and sat down with a smile. Then I reached under the table and placed a folder next to her plate. She glanced at it, still smiling. "What's this?" "Something I've been working on," I said. Calm, clear, like I was discussing a home project. She opened the folder. The first page, the forged quitclaim deed, notarized, dated, signed, not by me. Her eyes flicked to mine, then back to the paper. The second page, the note from the recycling, still torn at the bottom. "Thanks again for helping. It's time to start clearing the anchors before I move." Her breath caught just slightly. Not enough for panic, just a stutter. The third item, a printed scan of the divorce preparation workbook, complete with asset lists, her custody strategy, her exit narrative. I watched her face carefully. It wasn't confusion. It was recalibration. "You went through my things," she said slowly, trying out different angles. "No," I replied. "I read the ones you tried to throw away." She reached for her wine, her hand trembling slightly. Took a sip. "This isn't what it looks like." I nodded once. "Then tell me what it is." She looked down at the pages again, searching for a foothold, a crack in the floor. "It was supposed to be symbolic," she said finally. "The bike, the note, closure. I was trying to make space for something new." "You gave away my father's motorcycle on my birthday," I said, voice quiet, "without asking. And then you forged my signature to take the house. That's not closure. That's an ambush." She set the wine down harder than necessary. "It wasn't like that." I slid one more item across the table, a typed letter, signed by me. She unfolded it and read. "Since you gave away the past without asking, I'm giving away the future without explanation. Consider this my notice." Her mouth opened slightly. "You're leaving?" I leaned forward. "You spent months preparing your exit. I'm just giving you the courtesy of clarity. No shouting. No drama. No performance." She dropped her gaze. For a moment, she looked like someone standing in the ruins of a house they thought they'd finished building. She reached for the papers again, as if the right page might undo it. "Cole was just a support system," she whispered. "Someone who understood." I almost laughed, but I didn't. "You had a support system," I said. "You just buried it under paperwork and plausible deniability." Her face hardened. "You don't know what it was like." "I know exactly what it was like. You made a plan. You made me the last to know. And now, I'm the first act." I stood, picked up my plate, and carried it to the sink. She didn't follow. Didn't protest. Because she knew. There's a moment in every confrontation when the narrative breaks, when the rehearsed lines don't land and the fallback strategy collapses. That night, in that silent kitchen, I watched it happen. And I didn't feel angry. I felt free. 3 weeks after the confrontation, I sat in my attorney's office, reviewing case materials. The forged deed was now part of a formal complaint. We were moving quickly: civil fraud, property reversion, financial injunctions. But something still bothered me. The motorcycle. She said she donated it. That it was. Symbolic, closure. But something about that had never sat right. Emily wasn't sentimental. She was strategic. And Cole, he wasn't the type to facilitate altruism. So I called the charity. It wasn't hard to find. She'd mentioned the name in passing during brunch a month earlier. The Motor Outreach Center. As if she were proud of herself. A woman answered the phone. I'm trying to track a recent donation, I said. A vintage Triumph Bonneville, mid-60s. Should have come from Emily Whitaker. Would have been about 6 weeks ago. There was a pause. Sir, the woman said, we don't accept motorcycles. Never have. I stared at the wall for a moment, pen motionless in my hand. You're certain? We only accept cars and trucks that meet our eligibility guidelines. No bikes. It's a liability issue. I thanked her, hung up, and opened my laptop. I pulled up the DMV transfer records for vintage motorcycles. It took 15 minutes to trace the title. The bike hadn't been donated. It had been sold, 2 days before my birthday. Transferred to a holding company registered in Cole's name. A further record search showed the payment had been wired directly into Emily's business account. Not ours. Not joint, hers. She hadn't given it away. She'd sold it, monetized it, turned grief into liquidity, and transferred the memory of my father into a footnote on a financial report. I sent the documents to my attorney. He added them to the fraud case. It's good leverage, he said. We'll bury them in it. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt gutted. Because there it was, the truth I hadn't wanted to admit. Even after everything else, she wasn't just leaving. She was profiting. She'd taken the one thing that tethered me to my father, stripped it of its meaning, and used it as a financial stepping stone into whatever life she was building next. I filed the report with the IRS. Unreported income, improper donation claim. I flagged the forged deed with the local recorder's office. A fraud alert was issued. Her name on the title was nullified pending investigation. A week later, her startup investor, the one she'd been cultivating for months, pulled out without warning. Quietly. I never said a word. But I had mailed a plain white envelope with a copy of her forged deed and a one-line note. Consider who you're building with. Cole lost his job 2 weeks after that. Someone leaked a package of documents to his firm's ethics committee. They reviewed his consulting arrangements. Violations were found. The exit was quiet. No scandal. Just absence. Emily tried to recover. She posted online about resilience, about change, about choosing peace. But the story got out. A few mutual friends called me, gently, cautiously. I told them the truth. Not everything. Just enough. By the end of the month, her public image had collapsed. Not dramatically. Just slowly, like a bridge rotting from underneath. People stopped calling her back. Clients dropped off. One friend told me she'd started canceling events she used to host religiously. I didn't gloat. I didn't post. I just let the silence do what it does best.